Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Tech Tuesday webinar. I am your MC for this afternoon, Kevin Marheine, and today I'm joined by our Chief Information Security Officer, Mr. Jim Hunter, our CISO. Jim, nice to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and before I let you go through the presentation here today, which again is focusing on Firewall as a Service, just a couple of quick little housekeeping items. After this webinar has been concluded, we will be sending out a recording that'll either go out this afternoon or potentially tomorrow morning, but we do make sure we get it turned around pretty quick for you. And we'll also be sending over a copy of the slide deck as well, so that way if there's any information that you saw here, you'll be able to reference that, and then you, of course, can reach out to us either through Coretek.com, our website, or you can respond. I believe those emails will be coming from marketingmail@coretek.com, and you can reply back there, and we'll get you routed to the right people as well. If you do have any questions during the course of the webinar, please do feel free to go ahead and send those using the chat feature, and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. And really, without any further ado, Jim, I'm going to go ahead and I'll hand it over to you, and we'll start walking through today's presentation.
All right, great. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, so as Kevin mentioned, I'm Jim Hunter. I'm the CISO here at Coretek, and then I head up all of our security services as well. And obviously, Firewall really fits nicely into the security envelope as well, being one of those frontline security controls. So we'll take some time today to really talk through Firewall as a Service. I know there's quite a bit out there in the marketplace, and I think our offering is a little bit different maybe than a traditional sense that I think everybody's latched on to today, but nonetheless something that we found a lot of success in offering our clients as well. The topics for today that we'll go through, take just a few minutes to go over, really what Firewall as a Service means, both to the marketplace and then what Coretek has put together for that, and then touch on, why people might need, a firewall service. I think, there's a lot of different variables that we can talk through in terms of advantages, disadvantages, and then touching on a cloud firewall design as well. I think for a lot of companies, and this is what is real big business driver, for Coretek in this area, as companies make that migration out, whether it's a cloud best or cloud first strategy, firewall becomes a big service and big ticket item that needs to be put out there as well before the organization moves there. And then we'll spend a few minutes on any follow-up questions. So let's kind of dive into what Firewall as a Service is, and first of all, I think just to level set, I mean, some may know and live and breathe this every day, but at least just a quick definition on a firewall. I mean, it is your front line of defense. I think in some respects it's like the door is to your house. It's there to really act as a barrier to prevent people from, in that instance, coming into your house. But in a computer instance, the firewall is there to prevent unauthorized people from coming into your network and infrastructure. And it does this by really looking at who's coming in and what's going out. And that's important in the sense that if a device on the network was to become infected with something and try to bring your data out outside the organization, firewall can act and really stop that traffic from going out just as much as it's stopping people from coming in. So, these were originally, put in place. Firewall's been around for, decades, more in a traditional sense that they were on site to protect company networks, more so in that traditional sense, originally having sort of that untrusted DMZ sort of, hey, we're not sure, that we fully trust what's in this particular network segment, and then finally, a trusted sort of internal and security environment. And now that more and more companies are moving their applications out to SaaS providers and moving their data out to the cloud, or in some instances multi-tenant services, firewall really needs to evolve and keep up. It is a key security control for any organization, and regardless of where the data is going or how the applications are being served, we need to get that control out there as well to keep pace. And so, in the marketplace, what you find is, firewall as a service, as a buzzword in the marketplace, really is there, I think, in part to support companies' cloud strategies, mainly around, I've found, in multi-tenant service offerings. So if you need to host say a portion of your website out at a third-party provider that hosts, tons of websites, you're really sharing a service. It's a multi-tenant service, and you don't have the ability, because you don't own the infrastructure, to really place a firewall there, although you need one to help filter that traffic that's going to your website and your web environment. So, the marketplace really started with a cloud delivered firewall service to really address that initially. And because of that, you're sending your traffic really through this cloud provided firewall first, that takes care of filtering it, and then ultimately sends it on to whatever this third-party services that you, as a company, have decided to consume with your data. So you're getting the firewall protections, but it's done through an additional third party. You really get very little as a client in terms of ability to interact with that device. You can set some policies, but moreover, it's owned by that cloud service, and it's paid for on a monthly basis. And it in our eyes, in Coretek's eyes, it leaves a gap, because while that addresses that specific situation, what if you're a company that's going from a traditional on-premise offering and hosting of your infrastructure, and you're starting to make that cloud migration, you're starting to make that cloud journey? Maybe you're not going 100%. You want to sort of adopt that cloud best strategy, cloud first strategy, and it's going to take you a few years roadmap wise to get there. Well, how are you going to address the fact that as you create this public cloud instance for your company, you need to secure it. You need to secure it with a firewall to start. And you can use that cloud-based firewall to try to do that, but this is your managed instance in that public cloud tenant. You have servers and things you're going to be creating there. You have other workloads. It's not that multi-tenant setup. This is solely owned and walled off really for your organization. So, what we found with the clients is, being able to place a firewall there, even if it is a virtual instance of a firewall, being able to place it in their tenant and really act as if it's an on-premise firewall, even though it's out in a public cloud. That's where the clients have wanted that, that firewall offering. And so we've gone and created firewall as a service really to address that need for both on-premise and in cloud. For us, it's the Azure cloud, and giving the clients the ability to get a firewall not only installed but designed first, and for the cloud and what they're going to do, then get it installed, configured, and fully managed for them as a service. So from the client's perspective, they can be along in terms of design and whatnot, but we take the heavy lifting as far as the installation and day-to-day management. And so, to start to ask and answer that question, why would I need those additional services? The challenges, I put into a couple of buckets. The architecture side and the operations side. I think on the architecture side, you have some firewall designs you have to do first to keep pace with the organization as they begin that cloud journey. And in some instances, it's a resource skill set issue where maybe you're a smaller organization and you have this sort of a traditional network person on staff that has not yet gotten an opportunity to go out to the cloud to learn the differences out in the cloud, and thus they don't have that experience as well. But yet you're going to count on them to do the design of this firewall, to place it out in this case in Azure, ahead of the rest of the organization moving any workloads out there. So there's a big issue there from a resource standpoint. First and foremost, to do that architectural design, and so you're also planning for not just what you're doing today, but how do you accommodate for what you're going to do in the future both in growth and change for the organization. So, that we see first as a big challenge from the architectural standpoint, and then to compound that, it's the day-to-day operations. So, once you get this firewall stood up, designed, and put out in the cloud, or even on premise for some additional locations, again, you're going to bump into that resource issue in terms of skill set. Do they have the skills, again, to run that firewall, to properly maintain it, to keep pace with the new projects? And then on top of it, from a bandwidth point of view for these resources, can they enable and work in your new projects and enable those projects to move forward, in addition to keeping the rest of those operational duties going as well? So, a people skill set and bandwidth issue that we can solve for, but also, there's some challenges as far as upfront budget, for this firewall and the associated installation services. And what do we do about future support, once it's installed and configured? So I think you'll see in the upcoming slides where our offering really addresses, all of these issues and more for our clients. On the architecture side, some advantages that we can provide with our service. So, first off, obviously, providing you, the client, with some skilled network resources that are extremely familiar, not only with on-premise, but the cloud, especially the Azure cloud. Things are not the same when you work out in a public cloud. I think it's one of the first things you ask any network person when they first take that step into the cloud. It's especially in Azure is no different from many of the other public cloud providers, but the public cloud providers are going to take certain segments of the network and hold it within their responsibilities. And so what you're going to be handed that you may be traditionally used to in a colo or an on-premise type design, having the ability to get down to a layer 2, for instance, isn't there in the cloud. And so we can offer you some skilled resources that understand that, first of all, very familiar with it, and can start that design conversation with you to make sure that not only is the firewall architected for the cloud to start, but security is also in that design really from the start. And that's something that, again, going back to that skill set issue, that we can immediately address with you. And then to ensure that best practices are reviewed and put into that architectural design. And then, for Coretek, especially with the cloud, automation is key, in the cloud, and that's across the board. Being able to automate workloads, spin up and spin down workloads, and automate designs to be able to implement them faster. And that's something that we offer as well, as some packaged firewall designs that can get you stood up quicker, but not at the expense of any of the security constructs and things like that. So we can offer it if you're just stepping into the cloud, for instance. We can get that firewall stood up very quickly with you, and then give you something to grow from. And as your business evolves and your needs evolve, we can grow that design as well. And then flipping over to the operational side, and once we get that firewall stood up, again, really addressing the fact that because it's a service, you have access to people within our managed services area, both at the architect level all the way down to the engineer level. So we can give you that ongoing support. If the company or your company decides to expand, for instance, their cloud initiatives and really accelerate them, we can bring those architects back in as part of the solution and ensure that that firewall is right sized and has the right rule sets and things to afford that expansion and make sure that it happens successfully. And then obviously that gives you resource cycles back so that your team can stay focused on really driving those new projects internally and making sure your business stakeholders stay aligned. And then operationally, we're going to be there managing that firewall. So we'll take care of applying the service packs, we'll take care of the patching on that device, and we're going to really do that and reinforce that by scanning that firewall. So many times it's sort of that set it and forget it mentality. Firewall gets put out there, that's the day that it's at its most patched and maintained, and oftentimes it gets forgotten. Well, that's something with our service that we're going to review and scan on a monthly basis and make sure that firewall does stay up to date. And in addition to that, especially with our Palo Alto offering of firewalls, we can see all the way through layer 7. We can see conversations all the way through the applications, and so because of that, we can review those monthly firewall performance reports, not just for what was coming in and got blocked, but more importantly, look for signs of malicious activity on your network that may be evading the controls you have in place, whether it's your antivirus or web filters or things like that, and really try to help you understand if you have issues on the security space that you're just not aware of, that the firewall is seeing. Maybe it's command and control traffic that's going out somewhere. And we'll catch that through those monthly reports that we go through with you. And then obviously looking at any of the top traffic indicators and capacity planning as well. Last thing you want to do is put this firewall out there and find out, in the midst of a project that it can't support the volumes that you're going to be putting through it. So we'll be able to keep an eye on that for you and proactively help plan that capacity. And so, the offering in a nutshell, as I said, it's a 100% fully managed firewall as a service. So we're going to buy, install, configure, and maintain that firewall. And as I mentioned, our partnership with Palo Alto, they're a leader in the firewall space, and especially, for us, both on-prem firewall and Azure firewall offerings, we found their offering really stands apart from the others in the sense that they've got some additional add-ons for threat protection and things that really give our clients some additional security controls and security review items that we can go through on a monthly basis. And from a budgetary standpoint, we're now able to take the cost of the firewall, the installation, and the ongoing maintenance and really wrap it into one sort of fixed monthly price for our clients. And that falls perfectly into alignment with cloud in terms of a billing standpoint. You're taking things that are traditionally CapEx expenses and you're creating OpEx off of them based off of consumption. And last thing you want to do is present to your leadership that, hey, we're going to Azure and we're going to spend $1,500 a month. But by the way, we need $12,000 to get a firewall stood up. We can take that and amortize those costs and really offer you an ongoing perpetual service over 1 to 3 years that will keep that as a fixed price. And that support would include doing that design work up front, that architecture work up front. And then on the management side, making sure that any of the rules we put in place, whether they're ACL rules, whether they're web filtering rules for your users, that those get managed and maintained every month. So as you evolve and need new rules and filters put in place, you can simply open a ticket with our team and we get those taken care of. And then, as I mentioned before, we're going to maintain that firewall, and we're going to do it through Palo Alto's Panorama service, and that would give us the ability to monitor that firewall as well actively. And then again, conducting those monthly meetings with your team around security reviews, both the SLR reports, the reports that are really showing you from a security perspective, what's flowing in and out of your firewall, and providing some of those potential alerts that you're not catching, and then a best practice analyzer, making sure that firewall is in its best form as well, and that'll all be done on a monthly basis. So touching on some cloud firewall designs, and this is something we like to bring up. We get asked this question really first and foremost from most of our clients in terms of as they go out to Azure. What are the options that are out there? It's public cloud. Obviously, Microsoft will give you the ability through what they call a network security group to really do a very basic, almost port filter out of the box. And sometimes the clients, think, okay, that's enough for me to do to get out there. And you can filter traffic coarsely that way. But what we find is that very quickly, once clients start moving some serious workloads out to the cloud and out to Azure, that really becomes a bit of a barrier, especially from the security perspective for them. You lack some of the enterprise features that you would expect to see in a true enterprise firewall. Your traffic visibility is limited. You can typically only go up to layer 3, not through layer 7, where you get to the application traffic. And so, very quickly the conversation has turned into something more on the enterprise firewall side. And so, for us, we can do the Palo Alto offers a VM series in Azure. They're sized from a 100 up to a 500. We go through that exercise with our clients to really determine what size virtual firewall they need. But more importantly, with all those VM series firewalls, you're getting that visibility from layers 3 through 7. You're getting a lot of traffic inspection. We can do decryption of HTTPS traffic that's coming in, and in addition to that, the Palo Alto firewalls have that cloud-based threat management, so they're always getting constantly updated for new things to watch for in terms of traffic that's coming through, whether it's malware protections, whether it's other signatures, known bad sources, things like that you would expect to see from a cloud service. So it really takes a single firewall, with that VM series, and amplifies it to where it can really cover a lot of things that traditionally were covered with multiple appliances. And so we can set that firewall up both as a single, and really this is where we start those conversations in terms of what we're protecting. In Azure, a single firewall can be there to front run, database workloads, app workloads, web server type workloads. But if it's a set of applications that maybe is tier 1 to your company, needs a higher level of firewall uptime potentially, you are dealing with a public cloud, so they have SLAs like anybody else. So we can take what maybe was being a single point of failure, and we can multiply that into an HA offering. And HA we can offer, natively in case of Azure, where we can really take 2 firewalls, let them talk through some sort of heartbeat or communication internally, and have that kind of active passive. Now, the caveat to this is because it's public cloud and those communication messages are stacked in there with other messages, there can be upwards to a 5 to 15 minute delay in terms of those firewalls seeing each other being up and down. So in some instances, the clients can take that. In others, they can't. So we have really a third design that we can insert, and that is something that we'll put load balancers, virtual load balancers in Azure in front of and behind the firewalls, and really help broker that conversation. We eliminate that failover latency, and it gives us the ability to expand as well in terms of additional firewalls that might be needed if you get into 3 or 4 firewalls for capacity reasons. And so, to wrap up the conversation, for us, again, the firewall as a service offering really helps those clients that are beginning that cloud journey as sort of an alternate offering to having to take their cloud-based firewall out to a third-party service. It allows us to put it in your prem, in your cloud space. We can do that in a single or HA design. We can even do it as a package where we can deploy it through some automation and get you set up faster and cheaper. And then we can start to really talk through some of the ancillary services, whether it's VPN or web filtering, things that can help save you money that we can tie to that firewall offering. And then, one of the big conversation drivers initially with our clients with the service is to do that cost analysis, whether you want to own and take on setting up and installing this firewall, you want us to do it. You can look at the people skills very carefully, that'll be a factor in this. And then your future growth and project capacity. And then, looking forward into that 3 to 5 year refresh, if you own it, are you going to have to go through that exercise again? Or you can just stay with a continual service like this and have that firewall refreshed after that period of time. Obviously, help solve that CapEx versus OpEx issue as well. So, for us, just reach out. If you're an existing customer, come in through your current sales executive. If not, come through our website, give us a call. We can handle those conversations either way, and definitely happy to begin to explore those services with you.
Great, thanks for walking us through there, Jim. And I'll go ahead and I'm going to check now to see if we have any questions here in the chat. So let's take a look here, and it does look like we have a couple coming through. It's going to cooperate with me. So the first question here, Jim, obviously when it comes to firewall as a service, and it being the the subscription-based tool that sort of, to your point, your last point there about the CapEx and the OpEx.
Yeah.
With that, what are some of the factors that really would encourage a company to go with it, to go with that as opposed to
Sure.
going with the more traditional way of financing it?
Yeah, and I think that comes down to you can certainly finance traditional, and on-prem, on-prem and cloud firewalls, through some of the financing organizations that are out there, and sort of creating that hardware as a service, or that, for us, we're taking that one step further. We're taking the cost of the firewall, both the licenses, the hardware, and taking that traditional approach of amortizing it over a time period. But now we're wrapping into that the design, the installation, the configuration, and then operational expenses as well as part of that. So very similar to why do people lease cars versus buying them? Because you can get into a vehicle obviously for much lower initial cost, and then all that maintenance sort of ongoing issues are really handled as part of that lease as well, and a lot of cost avoidance that you can go through versus owning it.
Great. Another question here is hopefully a little more simpler for one to answer here, but how do you remotely manage the firewall?
Sure. Yeah, so with our service, and especially with Palo Alto's offerings, we use a Palo Alto product called Panorama. It gives us the ability to do some NOC monitoring on the firewalls first and foremost to ensure that they're up and functioning. But secondarily, it gives us the way to manage across clients without necessarily having to open up security or potential security avenues. We can do that through the Panorama service, and it'll handle the traffic encrypted, gives us all the full security controls and MFA and other things as well with that management platform.
Cool. And looks like we have one last question here. I know we're getting close to the 2:30 mark, but I think we have time to squeeze this one in. This last question is just asking, how does a customer know when you're patching and maintaining the firewall properly?
Yeah, and that's a great question. As we like to say, it's trust and verify. So that verification comes through those monthly meetings. We can show them the reports, from the firewall. We can show them the best practice analyzers, and more importantly, we do offer that vulnerability scan, and for that particular tool, we provide a read-only view of that. So at any point, it's full transparency. Clients can go in and see, the latest scan results that occurred with that firewall to ensure that it does stay optimally maintained and tuned.
Great. Cool. Well, that takes care of the questions here today. I just want to thank you again, Jim, for running us through the deck today and talking a little bit about the firewall as a service. Certainly, I know for myself, obviously, I'm not as in tune to the world of security as some of our viewers may be, but I know myself, when I think of firewalls, I think of McAfee or Norton or something like that always pops up when I'm using my own personal computer. And great to see, great to learn more about what's available to companies, especially in the cloud and with Azure. So
absolutely. Yeah,
appreciate you taking the time, and we will be sending out a recording again of this webinar. So if you do, if there's anything you want to go back and take a look at, you'll be able to do so at your convenience. We'll also be sending out a copy of the deck so you can refer to that as well. And as Jim mentioned, you really have a couple different avenues for getting in touch with us. If you're interested in learning more about what Coretek can do on this front, either go to coretek.com and you can hit the schedule a meeting button, and you can get in contact with us that way, or when we send out the recording, you can always reply to those emails, and we'll get you routed correctly to the right people. Or if you're already working with a Coretek sales rep, feel free to reach out to them, and they'll be happy to get those conversations started, and we can see what might be available for you. But that will do it for today's Tech Tuesday webinar. We will be back again next week, and I believe next week's topic is taking a look at Citrix and cloud bursting. So if you're interested in that, invites will be going out. Well, one invite's already gone out, but another round will be going out later this week. So if you haven't signed up already, you'll be able to register for that. Until the next Tech Tuesday webinar, though, that'll be it for us today. And thank you for tuning in, and hope you have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.